Like the cat? Was it after the cat?
Yes, it is, but there's a little bit of a story to that. So, of course, Fritz the Cat, counterculture, was first X-rated cartoon.
I never saw it.
R. Crumb did it in the 70s, part of the whole counterculture shit like that.
Yeah, man.
So every one of my basically supervisors or people in positions of power over me had grown up in the 70s, college lads.
Yeah.
Fritz the Cat. Fritz the Cat. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay, I was aware of it, but it really wasn't, okay, Fritz the Cat. Dude, actually, we used to go to Vegas to record real estate seminars, and dude booked my hotel and my hotel room. Fritz the Cat.
Would you like this brown cocaine I bought off of a Guatemalan gentleman?
No, thank you. So it's like years and years and years of Fritz the Cat.
Yeah.
I don't even know what would have happened if they would have checked my ID, because clearly I was not. That
When
was
did
not
you
my name.
When did you finally see your namesake? Did you ever see? What would you think of the cartoon when you finally saw it?
I mean, it was. It's it's classic counterculture stuff. It's macking on chick cats and drug use and just general misbehavior. So I mean, it was.
You know what? I want to say, my old man used to have the heavy metal magazines, which. So maybe I did see, as you're explaining it to me, I'm like, oh wait, maybe I think I did see this. That's a hell of a, I got Hey Jude, man. So I didn't even feel bad. I didn't even feel bad cutting into you with the fucking, Fritz the Cat, tell me about it, Because as long as there's boomers alive, I got to hear, hey Jude, and then they talk to me about it.
Yeah, and so basically when I was doing, came time for my name to start getting on albums, people are like, okay, well, what name do you want on it? And it was like, Fritz the Cat, I guess, since it's stage name and it's one that I'm like, well, okay, if these motherfuckers are gonna call me that shit all the time, then I guess I'm gonna run with it.
The
So
other
there you
thing
go.
too is there's something fucking annoying about someone, and I'm saying this because I try to do it myself. When you give yourself your own nickname, like I tried to call myself Toast for lactose, which was the word. Like, it was just, I said it 2 times out loud. I was like, oh my God, and I never did it again.
Yeah, it's giving yourself your own nickname. That's now, back my dad's old school, and he's telling me his friends, and everybody had a nickname, but it was always some type of physical deformity or your nationality or something.
Bruh.
And it's like, okay, well, that people don't really do that a whole lot nowadays. So yeah, you got to kind of run with.
I miss that, man. You watch some old movies. Hey, there goes Whitey. Hey, there goes Shorty. Hey, there goes fucking Clubfoot.
Yeah, Gimpy Joe, man.
Billy the retard walking down.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But not so much anymore. They're like, well, maybe not.
I miss that say what you see shit. You know what I mean? It's just fucking.
That's true, but
because it didn't have a negative thing to it. It was just a descriptive. It was like, I see that we're different.
Right.
And now we have to be like, we're just the same.
Right. I mean,
let's not mention our differences.
Yeah, but it gets, because then again, back in the day too, if you would do that, if you would call somebody, I remember we used to call this, is a heavyset dude, we'd call him Grossberger. I called him Grossberger to his face, and he threw me into a locker, and I didn't call him Grossberger anymore. Well, online, you don't get that.
No. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's so wild. Just, man, you're constantly producing new shit, so you're dealing with you still deal with the online people, huh?
Yeah.
I don't. I'd stay away from that shit. That shit's Satan to me, man.
Well, I mean, it's you gotta know what's out there, but then it's like I don't really take part in it,
Yeah.
Because it's constantly interacting with it. It's more like okay, here's what I'm doing professionally, but I keep my opinion out of stuff because I mean, why bother? You don't ever have to explain yourself if you don't say dumb shit to begin with,
and or smart shit. Really, it's. I know. I wish we all would. I kind of want us to go back to polite conversation like they did in the 1920s, where you don't talk about certain things at dinner and hey, let's just try to be cool, because you're not going to change anybody's mind.
No.
And you're just gonna end up arguing with a fucking invisible person at dinner. You're like,
Right.
You're like, honey, what's wrong?
Right.
And then this guy.
Yeah, I was at a Super Bowl party where everybody was just kind of, kicking it, and then the two dudes next to me just went off on some political stuff, and I'm like, man, I don't even want to hear this,
Bruh. Yeah, my cousin, I love him to death. This motherfucker starts talking about communism, and we're at some old dude bar. And everyone had to be like, motherfucker, shut the fuck up. They just gave him that look, like, come on, man. We came here to not think about fucking communism, man. Fucking yeah, we haven't fucking butt fucked that idea to death, man. So you make beats for can you tell me what's going on? You got to excuse my ignorance with everything. So you make beats for Twisted and ICP, or just Twisted, or you make for everybody? How did that work?
Originally, here's the deal. Originally, I came down to Detroit to go to the Recording Institute of Detroit. And then I worked doing like production stuff. We're recording real estate seminars. We were like the sweatshop of grocery store ads. So we'd do hundreds of those every week. They would play in grocery stores like, this week on sale, like sausage. And we'd make them every week to send them out. And it was just, we'd get copy in on Wednesday. They'd write scripts. We'd record everything on Thursday. And then Friday I'd mix it. And then they'd have to get sent out for the next week.
What year was that? Like in the 90s?
I would say like 91, 92.
Wow, dog.
So I did that, and then when I left there, I went over to the Disc in East Point, which is at the time
Is that on Gratiot?
They were doing, no, it's on 9 Mile.
Okay.
It's been a studio since like the 60s. MC5 recorded there in 68.
Okay.
When it was GM Studios. So, but the dude who owned that, he was like the main guy for Parliament Funkadelic in like the 80s. And
Right.
he did a lot of stuff with George Clinton. Atomic Dog, they did there. So they, at that particular time, like mid-90s, they were like gangster rap central because everything was like all G-Funk.
Right.
And they were like, well, why don't we go to the studio where George Clinton goes to?
Yeah.
I'll go to the house of it. So I was working midnights, and it was like just constant rap. So I did engineering up until probably about 98. I started getting into production.
Let's pause for a second. Tell me about the engineering life for doing engineering for rap shit.
Well, my original shift was 7 at night till 7 in the morning, 6 days a week. I had Wednesdays off. So it was literally like 12 hours a day, 6 days.
I imagine some people probably was getting faded at nighttime, getting faded, write some rhymes type shit.
Well, yeah, there was that. Well, the funny thing is I'd do sessions, and people would be like, hey, man, we all see what it's like on VH1, man. It's party in the studio. And you're paying for studio time, and if you come out of it with garbage, then you're like, hey, maybe next time it won't be party in the studio. It's actually expensive to party in the studio. You party at home. I had these dudes came in, they bought, because you could do normal studio rate, and he had 6-hour blocks, 10-hour blocks, 20-hour blocks, and they got progressively cheaper per hour depending on how many you bought. So guys bought 20-hour block, they were going to do 10 hours. They were going to do I think midnight until 10 a.m. And in the first 45 minutes, they were completely blown out. They had brought in like 2 half gallons of Tanqueray. The producer was on acid, and it had just kicked in.
What?
And just like tons of weed. They managed to get through it. There were people like sleeping on the floor, waiting for, hey, it's time to get your verse. But again, they got done with it. They were, it was, let's see here. That was, they were out of Inkster.
Wow.
There was one group called ITP, the Inktown Posse. And then the other one was because they were named, they had the same name as a movie that came out, and evidently they had the name before the movie, and so the movie had to Menace to Society. That was it.
Oh, so I vaguely remember that.
But they had like a distribution deal with like some Sony affiliate, so they had a little bit of money. But after 10 hours, they get done, and it's like, yeah, we got to come in and record a bunch of stuff because I mean, they're just And that happened numerous times, and the people who came in doing it professionally were not there to party.
Let me ask you this: like, did anybody ever like get abusive or behave like in a disrespectful manner? And how do you diffuse that if so?
Well, we had all kinds of crazy shit happen. They had two guys because there was this group out of Pontiac, and there were two brothers, and they're both huge dudes, and they got into a fight in the vocal booth, and it was like the whole room was shaking because it was like Clash of the Titans, and it's like, okay. I don't really want to get into that, but they're family somehow.
Yeah, man.
So
that's rough.
you had people do like shifty stuff, try to steal stuff, and I mean we did have like a security system with panic buttons. So, but it was never nothing super crazy.
Right.
But just the regular drunken idiot people, and you just deal with it. You know, you don't.
When I did all the rap shit, like it was usually the guys that come along, you know, like they ain't got shit to do on a Thursday. You know, like they're just fucking in the background and they're like just show. Those are the people that I'll be like, watch them.
And then you get a lot of. We used to have these dudes that would come in on Sundays so that they could watch a football game while they were recording, and I think they came in and there were 22 people.
Bruh.
And there were maybe 7 actual rappers, and the rest were just crew.
Yeah, man.
And then, I mean, they were. It didn't. Again, they were there to party and watch football, and it was just like you had to wade through people.
At least it was Sunday, you know what I mean? It wasn't
Right, it
like
was Sunday
fucking,
during the day.
It
Yeah,
wasn't a Thursday afternoon. Like, don't you got somewhere to be? Don't you got
right?
a fucking family?
And then plus too during the day, there's people around and things happening. But like in the middle of the night, you're like, okay, if something jumps off, then what exactly you do? Because there's nobody around.
So when did you start doing? I asked, like, you started working with ICP from there. Is that where you were at?
I met ICP there. I met Twisted there back when they were House of Crazy. So I'd seen them there for a while.
So
now they did a record with Mike Clark, and that was their first record they did with ICP as Twisted. They did with Mike Clark.
What year was that?
98.
Okay.
And then it was Scott Sumner worked at the disc. They did some stuff with him too. And Twisted had started out as like another kind of another House of Crazy's advanced, but then they, with ICP, it was somehow they ended up as Twisted. So ICP was kind of, I know they brought them over to Europe. They toured Europe, and they didn't really care for that all that much. But I knew everybody. I knew ICP from the disc. I knew House of Crazy, so Jamie and Paul from the disc. So then they needed somebody to, and like Mike Clark sued them, so they're like, we need somebody to work with, and they knew me from there, so they're like, hey, would you be willing to work with us? And I'm like, oh yeah.
So were you cool with Mike Clark before?
Yes. Well, I knew of Mike Clark before. We weren't down like that because
what's that like coming into like a lawsuit situation? You're like, hey man, I'm here to fucking pick up the slack.
Well, I mean, it is whatever's whatever. And now they're cool with Mike Clark.
Yeah, but like in that moment, did you have to like make a phone call?
Well,
hey bro, I'm not trying to step on any toes.
They told me that it's like, hey, we got sued because we used shit we shouldn't have. We can't use any samples on this record. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. Give me the guidelines and then I'll run with it. So
that's you must have that must have been really cool for you to be able to like do like a sample free record.
Well, it wasn't sample free because I've been recording stuff that I've done since I've been doing it, like constantly jamming with bands and stuff. So I had samples, but it was me. So what am I going to do? Sue myself? There's an angle to that.
I was going to say you could do that. You could make a lot of money.
Because I mean, hip hop is. I mean, there's a lot of sampling involved in it, but it was stuff that was mine. So,
right. So
we used a bunch of that, and
are they considered horrorcore? What would they be?
They are considered horrorcore. Yes, that was the genre.
Yeah,
they call it the wicked shit. I know Esham was acid rap and horrorcore, and ICP's horrorcore, and I don't get too bogged down in all that. So,
what were like the? I remember going to an ICP thing in this was probably over 20 years ago at what's the one on Woodward with the fucking bowling alley? It was like
Magic Stick.
Yeah, it was like Magic Stick, and I think it was like one of the first gatherings, and it was surreal. Like I didn't know what was going on. I walk upstairs, and the two ICP fellas, they got like wooden thrones that they're in the dark, just sitting on wooden thrones, and it was like a bunch of like downriver chicks named Crystal, fucking just shooting pools, smelling like fucking fried bologna and Marlboro cigarettes and stuff. And I had a ball, like I had a good time. I was trying to fuck Crystal. She didn't let me smash.
All right.
That was like when I was in my fucking days. I really always wanted to smash a juggalo. Well, I guess a juggalette.
That's a juggalette, yes.
Tell me about that, like that culture, because
I can't really consider myself a juggalo because it was I've known about ICP for a long ass time, and obviously done a lot of stuff with Twisted, but I mean the whole deal has been nothing but cool to me.
No, dude, like you gotta understand when I say that I think that there's not a lot of subcultures out here, and the juggalos are like one of the few subcultures that we have. Like fucking furries are mainstream now. Like people are jerking off in teddy bear outfits, and that's fucking mainstream. And juggalos are still like, oh, look, he juggle. So when I say that, I'm
right, because that was the thing. Is it's just like a lot of the people who are just the weirdos from my time, because I was one of the weirdos from my time. And we had like some of us that hung out together, but they have, once they are like, hey, oh shit, you're into the same shit I'm into, like let's be weird together. And so
and that's why I'm asking, because whether you're a juggalo or not, we can both agree that you have a much closer proximity than most Americans to the whole juggalo thing, to give me like just kind of shed some light on the thing. Like, what are these cats into? What do they listen to?
They mainly they like horror related things.
Okay.
Horror movies. They also are, because of ICP, super down with wrestling too. Like,
word.
And then it's basically a lot of it revolves around the clowns, and the clowns like kind of like dictate like, hey, this is this and that's that.
What do you mean by the clowns?
They got people, ICP.
Okay.
And the whole Fago thing, people are super into Fago somehow, even though that was just, that's the cheapest shit we can throw.
Well, that represents like coming from the soil,
right,
man.
Yeah,
that's soil shit, right?
Right. I mean, it's coming from the hood in Detroit. It's cheap soda. There's what we drank. So now people are like, I'm looking online and people are like, hey, I found this weird flavor in Poughkeepsie. I'm like, okay, well but again, it's just because they're fans and they built their own subculture. So
what I find really interesting too is that that the approach of, because ICP started off as inner city posse, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And just the idea of creating a whole mythology, and then so I'm not buying a song. I'm buying a story. I'm buying the mythology.
Right, you're buying into it because it's because they've always been into wrestling. A lot of the stuff is basically, when you break it down, storylines.
Yeah.
With like the whole basically making a make-believe scenario.
Okay.
That people can invest into and think, that like, oh my God, I can't believe that Sergeant Slaughter, he's an Arab now. Oh my God. And
I forgot.
So there's always the good guy and the bad guys. So they knew that if they did that with their group, that people would, they would get into it, because instead like, hey, we got a new song coming out that's talking about the same shit. Come check our shit out. When they have like something more into it, where you're the Hulkamaniacs, kids eat your vitamins.
What were some of the ICP things? How did Twisted fit in with that?
Well, Twisted you could almost consider them juggalos, because they were fans.
Well, that's why
they were the House of Crazies. They were definitely inspired by that.
Yeah,
because they were coming up and they're like, hey, we're into the same type of shit. We like wrestling. We like horror movies, and so they were kind of inspired by ICP. And then when ICP was like, hey, these dudes got talent, and these guys got, and they knew who they were. So it's like they wanted to bring them in to the company so they could build together, because it made sense.
So what was it? What was the storyline they came up with for them? And were you a part of that?
No, that was, again, I knew them from the disc when they were House of Crazies, from them just coming in, me seeing them come in and do shit. Never actually worked with them. So I kind of, when I started working on the first album I worked on for them was their album Freak Show, and they were signed to Island.
Okay.
So they were basically like, okay, here's what we're trying to do. And here's kind of what we're trying to push. This was our first album, and that did well, so we want to keep some of the same elements, but we also want to move, get better. So here's what we're trying to do. And they started doing, when they found out I played guitar, they're like, oh, shit, we're going to put guitar in it. Because they had some kind of in that. Mike Clark, was doing some rock stuff with them. They wanted to do more of it. So but literally I would go to the studio and sit with them with my bass, with my guitar, and we would just like come up with shit in the studio.
You just come up with riffs and shit?
And then go from there. And
what was the music you listened to growing up? I know it's probably a lot, but like what inspired you to play guitar?
I started out my neighbor, I grew up out in the middle of nowhere on the Upper Peninsula.
Wait, you're from the UP?
I'm from Marquette, outside of Marquette.
Bro, my mom used to stay up there, man. And then she ended up moving to Iron Mountain area over there.
My
like
grandma
Emerson.
lived in Kingsford. Which
Man, can you, people don't like, this is, what the fuck? Why we buried the lead on this one, man? Like, cats, people don't understand the UP is like its own fucking deal, man. What was that like growing up? Can you explain kind of to the people that don't understand? Because they think Michigan.
But I mean, it's a very different vibe.
Yeah,
really
bro.
Super laid back.
Yep.
See, my old man came from South Bend, Indiana, and I think he wanted to be like raise his family out in the woods to be away from like any type of corrupting elements. But
Did that work?
Kind of worked the other way.
Yeah.
Because like with my kids in Southfield, it's like they got to pick who their friends were. My option was the only kid remotely my age that lived 3/4 of a mile down the road, because it was literally in the other direction. There were no neighbors.
What was that kid into, by the way?
Smoking pot.
Yeah.
So and heavy metal.
Yeah, listen to metal. Yeah.
By default, that's what I was into.
Like a Hesher type fella.
He was like, okay, well, you got to check out this band, Iron Maiden. You got to check out this band, Judas Priest. My cousin got me into Kiss, but then he bought this import. It was called Live and Heavy. It was all English groups live.
Word.
And the best part was it was like a drawing, art of a dude with 2 concert speakers held up to his ears, and there's blood coming out of his eyes.
I know that one. Yeah.
But it had Motorhead, it had super early Def Leppard, and I got turned on to them before they blew up, and I was like, okay. Well,
before they sold out.
And then, well,
I'm just fucking with you, man.
I'll just say that once they started getting popular, I didn't really follow them all that much anymore. I thought they were one of those gems that I got like, yeah, hell yeah, these guys rock. And then like, I don't know, they're all over the radio now. But he got Black Sabbath, so that turned me on to a lot of shit. So when I was in high school,
How many people were in your high school class?
350 maybe.
That's a pretty good size, considering.
Well, it was the only. I mean, that was the only thing. Marquette's the only thing even close around there. So Marquette was the biggest.
What was the furthest away that someone would have to go to school?
Well,
like to drive into Marquette.
I was I think 14 miles out, maybe.
See,
more.
I just want people to understand like how fucking like where my mom was. When a train went by, it was half off beers at the bar. Like it's right, like it is a different vibe.
There wasn't a whole lot going on out by me other than fishing and smoking weed and listening to music. But then in high school, I got this guy John Burke. He was like kind of disgusted with me being into metal and stuff. He's like, no, I gotta turn you on to some stuff. His mom lived in Ann Arbor. She worked at Wazoo Records. She'd send him all the coolest, like, it wasn't even called alternative, but all punk and shit like that.
So what was
him?
So what did he play you first?
He would turn everybody else in Marquette onto this.
Do you remember like some of the first stuff he played you that where you're like, damn, what the fuck is this?
I remember the first thing he played me. We were in I forget what class it was even in, but I had my Walkman. I was always listening to my Iron Maiden or Maiden live in Japan.
Yeah.
But he was like, here, listen to this. And it was the Ramones, Beat on the Brat. And I was like, where has this been? This is interesting. You beat on a brat with a baseball bat?
And how old was that song? How old was that song by the time it got to you, right?
Me, well, that was, I think, 77.
Yeah.
And this was like 86.
So it's like a decade old, and you're like, what the fuck is this shit?
Because that shit wasn't played up there.
Hell
And he
no.
had it all, man. He had hardcore. He had Husker Du, all the shit that was going on in Minneapolis. And, so it was like, that's cool shit. And that was ours because, again, no one else is playing it. So then we're like, you know what? He was a drummer. And then this guy, Jeremy Porter, came up from Alpena, and then he kind of played guitar. So they started playing together, and they're like, hey, we need a bass player. I'm like, well, I'll go buy a bass here, press this on this string, and then, and it was fun. And then next thing you know, we're getting like, fraternities there, like, hey, we need live music, and there ain't no live music around town.
What's the name of your band?
The Regulars.
That's a pretty fucking good name, bro. I ain't gonna bullshit you, man.
So we were playing, never got paid other than just with beer, but we were playing parties.
Did you get the groupies, or were you a shy fella? Luxury, yeah. I was doing so good at saying it. This episode of, how do I not know what I'm on? He dumb. This episode of Coffee and Tree has been brought to you by Oreos with a Z. Shy fella.
There weren't a ton of groupies, but we had a lot of people that were like, okay, yeah, because you had people that kind of had gotten into the sort of alternative music, but it was cool having somebody live that would play it. And then there was another band. There was the Regulars, and then there was Asylum, and they were all the football players, and they played hair metal.
Yo, that sounds
we
pretty
sometimes did shows together.
That sounds cool, bro.
And it was, one of the guys I remember that came to one of the shows, he had showed up with his pickup truck, kegs of beer in the back.
Yeah.
Everybody's partying. That dude went on to be the chief of police in Marquette.
That's fucking.
And there's a lot of cool stuff with it. It's like, hey, I know your backstory, so don't try to be, bullshitting people here.
So, Fritz, let me ask you, did you guys do, was it all covers? And like,
we had. I think we had maybe three originals.
Walk me through like what would be some of the covers? What would be some of your
Dead Kennedys, Les Lynch, the Landlord.
Okay.
Lots of Husker Du into that, but we also do some Who.
Which one?
Also
Which
do
Who?
Monkeys.
Which Monkeys?
Not Your Stepping Stone.
Oh yeah, that goes hard. And which Who do you do?
Which ones did we do? We do some Beatles. I know we did Day Tripper. What Who did we do?
I think it's smart to do fucking covers because if there's no bands anymore, but like if there is, like, do original cover, because you want to get people. I want to participate. You want to sing along, man.
Yeah,
and then here's something that's kind of like that.
And when you think about it, because I go downriver to Wyandotte, and there's a bar down there. The guy who owns a music store will go there, and he's just him singing, playing the piano, and doing cover tunes. But it's live. Is the whole thing. It's a different vibe than if you're just playing a DJ playing.
There's something about being able to sing along. Like there's something, it's almost like church-like where we can all get together and be on the same.
Like, hey, I know that shit,
But it's beyond familiar, It's like it's like we're all together, like we're all joining in and we're matching our energy together, as opposed to like, oh, let me hear this fucking guy, so I'm gonna get signed. Fucking,
I don't know.
Tell me about global warming or whatever the fuck you singing about.
I don't fucking know what this dude's talking about. Hey,
something else I was thinking of when you were talking about being way the fuck up there, up north, is it's a lot of times it breeds like an eclecticism, if that's a word, that you don't get. Like something about being isolated almost makes it more eclectic than in the city.
There were a lot of it's a collection of your super conservative people that have been working the soil for hundreds of years, and then that's just they're used to their way of doing it. But then you get a lot of the weirdos, man. It's college town too, so you got weirdos that came to town and they're like, I'm staying here, and because they got a lot of folk dudes, a lot of hippies up there. And I had a guy that my senior year in high school. He went to the church that one of my mom's friends went to, and she's like, "Yeah, I think you should talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Come to find out, he was a Rolling Stones road manager.
What?
Chooch McGee, when he wasn't out on the road, he lived up there just anonymous because he liked being out in the middle of nowhere. So it was like somehow I'm talking to the Stones road manager, giving me advice about, well, you know,
What did he tell you? What was?
well, his thing was, you know, when he got into it, because he started out working with Ron Wood, and it was like Days of the Grande Ballroom, and
What's that?
It was like the main concert place in Detroit,
Okay.
where MC5 and a bunch of people would come.
So that was way
through
back in
town.
the day type shit.
Yeah, it's they're trying to like fix it up, but I don't know. It's been kind of decrepit for a while. But he was like, you know, I got into it just by doing it, but you need to have, you know, you need to get an education in it nowadays because things are a hell of a lot more technical. And so that was like, and I should have taken his advice right off the bat because he was like, I can get you any recording school you want to get into. But everybody had been telling me like, hey, there is no money in music, which I understand now that's the case. But back then, I did 2 years to electrical engineering technology, just doing electronics, fixing shit, you know. So
you just got that brain, huh?
well, it's I always want to figure out how shit works. So
Yeah.
you know, so I did 2 years of that, thinking that would lead to something, and they weren't really teaching me what I wanted to know. Then I took a class called the Science of Music that was the physics of musical sound, and that was like boom, all the
Wait, hold
all
up,
the
man. Can you
receptors.
explain that shit to me? Like, you know how they got Hertz?
Yes.
Can you and how like what's like? There's like, I'm retarded. All right, so like just fucking help me through here, okay? All right, because this shit is finally somebody that can explain this to me, man. All right, so what's the Hertz that's like the good Hertz? And first off, what is a Hertz?
A Hertz is a change in time.
Okay.
So the closer just a sine wave, which is a pure wave, that's sound pressure.
Okay.
So any sound is sound pressure.
Okay.
So with sounds that take a longer time to go back and forth, that's your bass sounds. That's why you can hear bass through anything.
Further.
So higher frequencies happen closer together.
And then I'm going to be jumping in just so I can, but keep going, Fritz. So higher frequencies go higher together, but it's harder
they're
to get
closer
to the wall, right?
together, right? But
Okay.
then, and one thing that I was able to kind of like getting off the track a little bit here. So growing up out in the woods, one of the things he always did is help my dad pull trees over. You got a tree that if he's going to cut down, might land on the power line, might land on the house.
Okay.
Big ass rope. Now you take that big ass rope, I would hit it, and you could see the wave go up and hit the tree and then come back. And I thought, and that's actually how sound works.
Get the fuck out.
So it's
you
it's
had
a
a visual.
change in air pressure.
Okay.
So, and then you have amplitude. You have your frequency, which are how close things are together. Now up and down, that's the amplitude. That's how loud shit are. Yes.
So
the bigger, if it's closer together and high up, then it's loud as shit with a high frequency.
Yeah.
But if it's farther apart and down, then it's low frequency.
and so going back to it, right? So I'm thank you, bro. Like, so it's going like slow like this, and that's kind of almost like it's easier for it to like move through things, right? Like,
yes, exactly.
It can kind of wiggle through the.
They used to have a thing called ELF, extreme low frequencies, for communicating with nuclear submarines.
And so how far
Underwater.
could that go? Like fucking forever?
Half the globe.
So then they got that one. There's certain things that can agitate a person, right? Isn't there like certain frequencies that can agitate people, and isn't there like a golden frequency?
Well, there is
Hertz's?
Like right in the middle is 1,000 hertz or 1K.
And what is 1K sound? What would that become? Do we talk in hertz?
Sounds like yes. That sound, everything, any sound you hear has hertz involved with it. 1K sounds like a test tone that you'd hear on TV because it's right in the middle of the frequency range, and you can hear that the best.
So 1K is like when they're
Right.
when they, like remember late night and shit. It'd be like, all right, man. TV's done. Take your fucking ass to bed, and then it'll be like, is that the 1K?
That's 1K. Yes.
Wow, dog.
That's right, because that's right in the middle of our hearing.
What do they record in? Does it or like what? Do they
That's
record
the thing,
all over the place?
Is
or?
that if you try to record the full frequency range, but really, human hearing is from 20 hertz to you start out with probably hearing about 20,000 hertz, but as you get older, you lose your high-end hearing.
Is that when like you're just chilling, some weird thing goes and then deads itself?
Yeah, usually that's because your ears have all these little hairs in them, and that they get stimulated, and that's what actually transmits that information.
I saw this one thing where like this guy was just playing like this. It was like before the concert, and he was playing this fucking like this tone that like agitated everybody for some reason, and they did it for like hours on end, and then people started puking and stuff like that.
They have a thing that they use for pirates that is like that will project a tone. Again, it's whatever will irritate you enough that you could focus in on people. Because if you get blasted with 1K, it's not a pleasant experience. Now, in theory, there's supposed to be what's called the brown note, which is like 8 hertz. But the thing is to reproduce that, you need a pneumatic speaker because it's hard to recreate that. That's supposed to make you shit yourself. So
What's a pneumatic speaker? Is that the one?
It's one that normally a speaker will move because of a magnet. There's an electrical impulse that moves a magnet in the speaker. But because it's such a low frequency, it needs an actual help to get the speaker to move,
like an engine or types or electric.
Yeah, like pneumatic, just like pneumatics with.
Bro,
four
you talking to me? You got to explain it to me like I'm a fucking toddler, because like it's so pneumatic is. What does that mean?
Well, it's like pneumatics is how you get, the forklift to pick shit up.
Oh,
It's pressurized oil generally that moves a piston.
Let me ask you this.
So it's pneumatics that push the speaker because you can't get electronics to move that slow.
Word. To be controlled
but in
that
theory,
slow.
I've heard so much talk about it. I've never seen it actually demonstrated.
How much would one of those speakers cost? Because the way I'm thinking of it, right? Get one of those in your bathroom. Never have fucking constipation again.
Well, that's true. Usually they want to do it for like crowd control because who wants to hang out after everybody shits themselves? So
they used to
I'm
do.
Sure some weirdos would be like, "Hey, man, that's cool."
They used to just play country music at the bar. At the bar just to get rid of everybody. I started thinking about shitting myself and.
Well, don't shit yourself.
I did this week, and it fucking sucked, man. I was at the Olive Bar, and I farted, and I was like, oh, no, this is bad. But the thing about shitting yourself, like sharding keeps a body humble. You know what I mean? You can't be stuck up when you're like washing yourself in a public restroom.
It basically, you can think you are more than you really are until you shit yourself, and then you're just like a toddler.
Honestly, I think it's God's way to just be like, shut the fuck up. You're not that smart. Go clean your butt. Something. Yo, you want to hear a story behind that? My mom wanted to go see those guys, and back in the 70s, and she got to go backstage, and she thought they were gonna be all hippie like, and they were just fucking doing rails of coke and stuff. And she's like, I thought it was nature's way, and then she was like,
well, it kind of depends on what nature is.
Colombian nature. Yeah, straight up Colombian like a motherfucker. So did you ever see that shit where they play music and then put sand on top of a speaker? Can I do that with any speaker? Or do I need a pneumatic one? Or is that bullshit?
You could do, if you look at a speaker when it's doing what it's doing, you can actually see the whole thing with the lower the frequency, the more the speaker moves out.
Yeah.
Well, the slower it moves.
Yeah.
The more it moves out, that's amplitude, that's actual volume stuff. But you could take a speaker and put something on top of it, and it will move shit because it's moving air. That's how sound is transmitted.
Will it make it crazy? I don't know why I'm asking. I should just get me a fucking screen.
I guess it would depend on the frequency.
Man, I'm gonna do that shit. I'm
Give it a whirl, man. Why ask? Just do. You know, unless it's completely illegal, then.
Well, no, then it's easier to get forgiveness than permission.
That's
so
true.
there we are.
That's true.
We got the same for anything we want to get into.
Man, flip a speaker over and.
Bruh, I got some speakers at the crib. I'm gonna do right now, man. Oh, all right. So what are you working? What are you working on? Like, we just had this whole back thing, and I made you explain science to me and shit like that.
You know, I'm here to answer any question.
Dude, I mean, honestly, man, like, isn't it crazy? We're surrounded by sound all the time. We're surrounded by music, and I don't even know, like, what the fuck. Like, I went and looked up the Pythagorean theorem. I gotta say it with like a British accent to even say it right. You know what I'm talking about? The triangles.
Yep.
There's something to that thing.
Right. But I mean, you got to remember that the way that we've figured all this shit out is that the shit happens and then we try to do it backwards.
Yeah. It's
and we don't
engineering.
necessarily know that if we're right. It's just that if more people come up with the same idea and like, yeah, I tried that out, it was right.
Yo, so like at the I've heard that they play happy tones at like the casino. On the slots and stuff?
Well, they do all kinds of shit with it where you think you don't get to see sunlight in the casino because you don't necessarily want people to know, it's getting dark out, it's time to go.
Yeah.
They also tend to pump in oxygen to keep you more alert because, you know, obviously
be healthier.
sleepy people, well,
health.
I don't think they're thinking about health. Man, I've seen some people
like
who
MGM
are not
cares
healthy
about me.
there, where the dudes with a cigarette and the oxygen tank and wheeling it around, they're just there like looking like they're dying and you're like, oh my God.
We were just talking about that. Like the old people are way into shitting themselves and pissing themselves because they don't want to leave that fucking box in front of them because God forbid. Like
it's crazy.
I'll piss my pants before someone hits on my machine. Like it's like, yo, bro, like. They've weighed that out. They're like, I could live with fucking feces, but I can't live with this fucking bum.
But the rule is if you leave that machine, then you have to go far away because if somebody sits down and like hits on that machine, then your life is ruined because you're like, I could have just stayed there for another 6 hours and that might have been mine. So,
my friend was telling me there's a DJ that part of his rider is to get scratch offs from wherever he plays, and he accidentally scratched too many. He would have won $4,000, but he scratched too many boxes off, and they all agreed to just not tell him because it would have been the same as what you just said.
Right? Yeah. Where you're just like,
yo, bro. There's nothing like fucking thinking that you got it and then just
right. Yeah, and it goes away. Yeah. Well, you know. Do. So, anyhow.
Yeah. Let's go back to shitting pants, bro.
No, how about we not go
I'm just yanking your dick, bro. It's good to see a Youper make good.
Well, you know, I try, you know. I came down here in 89, went to recording school, and then I've been doing recording professionally since 91 is when I started doing it.
What do you see for the future in music? Like what?
Well, you get a lot of people that are. I mean, AI is taking off in everything now. You know, you got. I guess there's some type of diss track with using fake Tupac voices and shit like that. So, I mean, you got that happening. But people will always like. You know, that's one of the things with people creating art. Even if you can get AI to make some dope shit, it's always, you know, humans are always going to human when you look at stuff like this and what's behind you there. I mean, that's not a machine's representation. That's somebody's being inspired to put that down.
You know what this is? It's a fella named Picasso.
He might do all right then if because he's kind of cool. So again, but
he's got a way about him.
Yeah, he might make it.
Fella.
Has he got a Patreon?
He might. I know he had a GoFundMe for a minute there.
Okay,
and if he just grinds, you know, he's got to stick at it.
But there's a thing where people can see when people see that, like, hey, that person put this down or somebody made that song.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, you can relate to that because that came from a person.
You
You know, if you're like, okay, well, you know.
Yo,
and then
Fritz.
plus,
Yeah.
John Connor is going to look at you and be like, hey, you really want to fuck around with AI?
Bruh.
Didn't I do movies to show you?
Did you see
Skynet.
Did you see there was one where this AI was like it was like I wish we could find it. See if you hopefully we could pull it up and just play it. It's like a AI robot and it's a black lady AI and she's like, what would I do if it starts off with like just ha ha ha, I'd fly around. Then it ended by the end of the sentence, she was taking over the whole fucking world. Like I was like, yo, man, like they're telling you right now what the fuck they finna do. I'm gonna be up north, man, bunkered up, talking about the Edmund Fitzgerald and shit, man, because I don't want no parts of that.
Hey, lots of old mines up there, lots of bunkers to be made, man. A lot of bedrock, you know. You'd be relatively safe because they moved the air base by Marquette. They shut that down. That used to be where the B-52s would go out and patrol the northern perimeter. So if there was like nuclear war, we were going to be incinerated.
You saw the Northern Lights too, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Man, you saw a little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Lots of snow, too. Mosquitoes.
Fuck, yeah. Them deer ticks, what are the Lyme disease?
Yep. My ma had that. It sucks. So.
It's a motherfucker, man. That's like my mom works outside. It's the same deal. Like motherfuckers are fucking frightened of that. Is she good?
Yeah, it's terrifying. Because,
Well,
I mean,
God
if you
bless
get
her.
a bad case of it, that shit'll last years.
Bruh. Yeah, no. That's why I don't go. And
So
then
you can
you're
either get bit by a bug in the UP or shot in the face in the D. So you got them about to like juggle like.
it's like, what do you want? Like, yeah.
Right.
And then my mom used to take me out in the woods, and I was like a little kid, and it was all that Friday the 13th shit, man. And I used to be frightened, man. Did that shit just ruin your whole world? Because your whole up north is all Friday the 13th. It's
Pretty much.
It's a big ass
I've
fucking
seen
Crystal
some
Lake.
terrifying things, but the thing is when you grow up in it, it's the same as if you grow up in the city when you're like, no, it's no big deal. You take like my mom, you take her down here, she just does not like the traffic, does not like the people all close together. It's just how you grew up, you know. I grew up running around the woods, so that shit's.
My mom was dating a jailbird from up there, you know, just constant DUIs and stuff. Would always whoop us in dominoes for some reason, you know. And we took him to the gay bar, the lesbian bar on 8 Mile. I think it was the Rainbow Room back in the day. Was it the Rainbow? It was the Rainbow. It was like a lesbian bar on 8 Mile fucking in the 90s. And man, he was trying to shoot pool, and every time someone walked behind him, he was just like, boss up, and like, oh. We never finished the game. We're just like, all right, Michael, let's go.
All right, a little paranoid.
And he lived in a field up there in a ice fishing shack with a car battery.
Oh,
And that was like normal, you know what I mean?
That shit goes for $200,000 nowadays.
Fucking A, dog. I'm gonna be up there. Fritz, pleasure meeting you. Thanks talking to you.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Man.
Thank you for explaining everything to me.
I try.
I feel like I'm a better person. I hope you
Okay,
feel the
good.
same way too.
Yeah, I do feel like a better person.
Let's go.